It's an honor and pleasure to be here as part of the Revels Connect Musical Connection series. I want to thank Revels for inviting me and David Cohen, and I'm really happy that Dave Jamrog is here doing all the video and sound. Today I want to really tell my musical story as a violinist. I have always been very interested in how the violin is played in different countries, and I have spent the last many years really exploring that, and I want to share it with you. But I thought I would start first with my own music, the music that I heard growing up. I grew up in New York, and my father's family is from Aleppo, Syria. My mother was born in the Ukraine from Russian parents. So in all of our family gatherings, I heard both Arabic music and klezmer music. The Arabic music was a big part of our family gatherings. In the background, as part of live bands for weddings, bar mitzvahs, house concerts, parties. And there was always a violinist playing, and I was aware then even that this style of violin playing is very different from Bach and Beethoven and European classical music, which I was learning as well. So I want to start with a piece by a violinist from the early 20th century, Sami Shawa. He was a Syrian violinist, and this is a piece of his. And I have to retune my violin. The Arabic violin is usually tuned G-D-G-D, which is different from G-D-A-E, which is the Western tuning, European tuning. And in this case, I was actually just tuned G-D-A-D. Now, my mother's family used to, when we get together, there was always music there too. It was klezmer or Yiddish songs that my mother and her sisters and her mother used to sing. And my mother and I used to play, she was a pianist, we used to play klezmer tunes together. And I'm going to play something by these are some early tunes. It's a slow hora, Candel's hora, and then Abe Schwartz, Freilach. And interestingly enough, I realized this years later, but the scale that is used in these pieces is the same scale, or makam, that was used in the first piece. And there's connections between pretty much all the music I'm going to play based on the melodic vocabulary, based on these makams, these scales, like ragas in Indian music. And the scale or makam I was talking about is this. That's the bottom part, and it's very common all over in Arabic music and in Greek music and Turkish music and klezmer music and Hungarian, Romanian, North African music. It's used a lot, and it will come up a little later as well. Next, I'd actually like to play for you something that I actually was playing I wasn't playing this piece, but I was training to. This is a piece by Bach. This is a solo violin from the B minor partita. It's called Double. And it's not in that makam called Hijaz. As part of my musical journeying, I got very involved with Renaissance and medieval music. I played in the Brandeis Early Music Group and the Boston Camerata with Joel Cohen. And one of the composers, a French troubadour composer, Adam Delal, and I will play a series of tunes that are 3 parts, so you'll hear 3 of me playing. This was pre-recorded. So. One, two, three, one. I was living in Cambridge around the time I was doing this, and I ran into a fiddler who was from Dublin named Clive Collins, and he taught me a lot of tunes, and I got very into Irish music. And he was actually the first fiddle teacher I learned music from by ear, and I really am grateful. I'm going to play a couple of fiddle tunes from Ireland. I was really, really interested at this point in going a little farther in my explorations. I found out about an amazing place in Berkeley, California called the Center for World Music, and I applied and I got a scholarship, and I went and I spent 3 solid months working really intensely with a wonderful Carnatic South Indian violinist named T.N. Krishnan. He passed away recently, but he opened a lot of doors for me. He also taught me by ear. He would refuse. My first lesson, I said, "Can I write down what you teach me?" And he said, "Oh, that's really an insult to the tradition." We also sat cross-legged on the floor, across from each other, and that's how South Indian and North Indian violinists played. I'm not going to do it today, so it might be a little not so easy to play. This music's sitting in a chair. The South Indian violin tuning is like Arabic, GD, GD, or FC, FC, depending on, usually the violin's accompanying a singer, depending on the singer's key. I'm going to change. And I'm going to play this with a backing track. It's going to be a drone. It's going to be a shruti box drone, which is what is used. It's used in South Indian music. This is actually, I just brought this out because I wanted to illustrate the difference and the uniqueness of South Indian violin playing. This is not finished product. I just was remembering actually the lesson that I got. I found this on a recording from my lessons with T.N. Krishnan, and I revisited it. This is in the raga Jayan Mohini, which is actually really the same as the Arabic piece I played at the beginning, that maqam. Almost the same. It's like this. See if I can do it with this. It's missing this note. So again, another connection of the world's musics. Actually, I got very, revisiting this made me realize how much I'd like to return to it, because it's beautiful and challenging, and I think I'm going to find other connections between the ragas and the maqams that I've been learning. I think there is a connection. I want to know about it. Ragas, Indian music, doesn't have chords. Turkish music has no chords. Arabic music has no chords or harmony. So they all have that in common, and they share a lot of the same scales. What I'd like to do now is actually play some Hungarian music, because after going to the Center for World Music, I became so excited about really learning other musical languages. I had a vision after I studied with T.N. Krishnan that's my life. That's what I want to do. I want to travel around the world and sit at the feet of master violin players and learn other musical languages and expand a palette of colors that someday I could paint my own music from. So first I had to go to New York and find an amazing violin teacher, which I did, to help me play without any tension. And I found that person, and I spent several years in New York City getting my master's in violin performance at Manhattan School of Music, but also freelancing a lot. But then I came to Boston and started performing with Libana, which is a women's chorus. And actually, as part of being in Libana, we played at the Russian Revels here in Cambridge. And then one fine day, a group of musicians came from Budapest, from Hungary, and I just saw a little bit of their playing, the band that came, and I was sold. I was glued to MIT, where they were for a whole week, and I just was spending every day and night there, learning, playing with the band, and it started me on several years of playing Hungarian music, and I had a group called Sharkan, which means dragon, with my friends Linda Ugolo and Lisa Bosley, who are also in Libana, and my teacher of Hungarian music was Ukros Csaba, and I'm going to play something that I learned from him, though I have to retune. So these are a couple of invertidas, which are dance tunes from Kalataszeg in Transylvania, Hungarian music, and I'm going to play this with the backing track as well. 1, 2, 1, 1. also want to play another Hungarian Transylvanian piece from Ördöngös Fizes, just another place. One thing that distinguishes Romanian and Hungarian violin playing is, from others, is the ornament which is called, I don't know actually what it's called, but I call it a vibrato trill. It's a vibrato, but you let the upper finger fall. It's different from a trill, which would be just with the finger, but to me, that's what really caught me when I first saw it, and I said, I must learn this. And I would like to play you a couple of Romanian tunes. The first one is like a slow horror, kind of like the klezmer piece I did earlier. So this next Romanian tune called Jamparale, it's a dance tune in 7/8. I'm playing with trumpet fiddle. This is an instrument that came into being around 1900 when recordings started happening a little earlier with big horns, recording horns, and violinists would play, but the sound wasn't loud enough. They didn't have microphones at that point. So people started putting horns. There was a guy named Stroh, Stroh, who had a factory in London, and he started making these Stroh violins, Stroh cellos, Stroh guitars, and they were really in vogue in the early days of recording. Then after microphones came about and technology got better, it dropped off. But in Romania, they kept playing the trumpet fiddle, and this instrument is from Romania. So I'm going to play Jamparale. So after I played a lot of Hungarian and Romanian music, I met some Greek musicians, and I got very involved in playing Greek music, which I still play. And I'd like to play you a couple of tunes from the Greek islands, one from the island of Leros. It's an Isios dance, and the other one from the island of Naxos. And that's a balos. And another Greek tune that I mentioned before is called Orea Punetin Avgis, which means how beautiful is the dawn. So from Greece, first of all, there's so many different styles, regional styles in Greek music. All the islands, each one has a different style. All over the mainland, there are different areas that have their own styles. And the violin remains the same instrument, but there are also other instruments called liras that also were there actually before the violin, and there's whole repertoires of that. I have several of them myself. But also there is a connection between Greek music and Turkish music, and I wanted to learn more about the whole makam system that I mentioned earlier in terms of a series of modes or scales that are used in all of this Turkish music and in Greek music as well. Although Greek music has chords and harmony, most of it, and Turkish music doesn't. So I went off to Turkey and studied with a number of amazing musicians. I'm very grateful to all of them. And I picked up this instrument, the yaylı tambur. It's a bowed tambur. It's a tambur there's an instrument called a mizrablı tambur. It's plucked with a mizrab, with a plectrum. Used to be an eagle quill, and now they use like plastic things. And it was put around 1900, around the time of the straw fiddle. Tamburi Jamil Bey, a very important composer and musician, put this tambur upright and put a bow to it, and it became the yaylı tambur. Yay means bow in Turkish. I'd like to play a piece from the island of Crete on the yaylı tambur. Usually it's played on the Cretan lira, or maybe the violin. And it's in Hijaz makam, so I'm going to go. I have a few more pieces left. One of them is on the violin. I'm going to change my tuning once again. This is a dance piece from the Black Sea. It's a Greek dance piece, and it's usually played on an instrument called a pontiaki lira, which is a narrow instrument, a bowed instrument with 3 strings, and they're tuned in fourths. And there's a Turkish version of it, Karadeniz Kemençe, and a Greek version, pontiaki lira. And I'm going to emulate or imitate that instrument by changing my tuning to tune in fourths. So my strings are E, A, and D. Okay. This is called Yecere. It's in 9/8 time. The last 2 pieces are going to be from Norway, and this instrument is called a Hardanger fiddle or Hardingfele. And it has many different tunings. There are also sympathetic strings, understrings, that are under the bridge, and they don't get, I think I take these out, they don't get played directly, but if they're in tune, which I hope they are, then they resonate and cause a kind of a reverb. And that also, you may have heard in the Yaylı tambur as well. The Yaylı tambur has, let's see, I think 5 sympathetic strings and two strings in the same groove that you bow on. here's a tune for the violin. Now I have to retune it. And actually this tune is just like a Western tuned violin, G-D-A-D, except that the lowest string is tuned down a step to F from G. So I want to thank Revels for asking me to be here today. It was really my honor. It's amazing to be in Revels world again. And I want to thank David Cohen again and David Jamrog. And also I want to put a shout out to Karim Naji, who I know did one of these concerts. I was his RIC student for a couple of years back, and he's an amazing teacher as well as performer. So thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of your day.